All right, and we are live. Thank you for joining us today as we kick off the first in a recurring discussion titled Introduction to Bitcoin IRAs. Due to popular demand of the Unchained IRA and the fantastic questions that we have continuously gotten from clients as we host our monthly retirement and inheritance webinar series, which just as a reminder is the third Wednesday of every month, we decided to create this additional session focused solely on Bitcoin IRAs and really focused on providing you with a forum to ask as many questions on the Unchained IRA and Bitcoin IRAs more generally. I'm Connor Dolan. I am a director on our client solutions team, and I am joined once again by Jeff Vandrew, who is the head of retirement and inheritance at Unchained Capital. Today, we are going to cover the basics of Bitcoin IRAs, how to hold your private keys to Bitcoin in an IRA. And as I mentioned, a big focus of this discussion will be on that Q&A. Now, before we get into it, a couple of quick housekeeping items. As always, you can download this presentation directly from this platform by clicking the little cloud icon in the top right corner of the presentation window. Additionally, this webinar will be recorded and a replay will be made available on our YouTube channel within a week or two. Most importantly, for that Q&A session, if you can see there is a questions tab in the bottom right corner of the screen. Please navigate there to submit any questions you would like answered on our discussion today. And what's really cool is you can also see the questions that others have asked, and you can vote for which ones you want answered first. Now, let's take a look at the agenda for today's discussion. Here in a moment, I am going to pass it over to Jeff, and he is going to walk through why you should consider having Bitcoin in an IRA, and really just more broadly, what is an IRA? What are the benefits of an IRA and the different types of IRAs that you can set up? Then we are going to transition the conversation to discussing how you can secure your IRA with multi-signature custody and actually hold private keys to real Bitcoin within an IRA account. Of course, we'll talk briefly about Unchained Capital's solution, the Unchained IRA, and then we're going to jump right into the Q&A session. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to my counterpart here, Mr. Jeff Vandrew. The floor is yours.
Thanks, man. Great to be here today. So we're going to start by talking about why a Bitcoin IRA is a valuable direction to go. So currently $35 trillion is locked in U.S. retirement accounts. So here at Unchained Capital, our head of concierge, Phil, never lets us forget that. And he's very smart to constantly bring that up. So that's a lot of money, and that's a lot of dry powder that could be moving into Bitcoin. So, the problem is if you want to move it into Bitcoin in the traditional sense, you're going to end up, paying a lot to the government. There's tax, there's penalties, there's all sorts of things. On the flip side, if you move that into Bitcoin within the context of an IRA structure, you can avoid all of those issues altogether. And even if you don't have a retirement account necessarily to roll over, so you don't have a piece of that $35 trillion pie right now. If you're doing an annual stack, doing it in a Roth IRA means that all of your future appreciation is going to be tax-free forever. So with that in mind, let's talk a little bit about what an IRA is. So an IRA, which is an individual retirement account, is a tax-advantaged retirement account held by an individual that is not tied to his or her employer. IRAs allow annual contributions, but often the biggest funding source for an IRA happens when someone leaves his or her employer. Because when you separate from employment, regardless if you quit, retire, or fired, whatever the reason might be, as soon as you separate from employment, you gain the ability to roll over on a tax-free basis the balance of your workplace retirement plan, which would normally be a 401k. For some people, that might be a 403b, a 457, a TSP. If you're working at a really old school employer that never updated their retirement plan, it could be some real funky stuff like a non-401k profit sharing plan, or there were even some ones in the old days called a money purchase plan. Whatever that sort of retirement account might be, you can roll that tax-free into an IRA upon separation from employment. We also want to cover real briefly here the difference between a traditional IRA and a Roth IRA. So a traditional IRA is funded pre-tax. After age 59 and a half, withdrawals from a traditional IRA are taxed at ordinary income rates. Usually, most clients, when they're setting up a traditional IRA, it's being funded by a rollover from either an existing traditional IRA or some sort of workplace retirement plan that is not a Roth retirement plan. So the most common type of those would be a 401k that is not a Roth 401k. That's usually how these traditional IRAs are getting funded. A Roth IRA, on the other hand, is funded post-tax. So the advantage to the Roth IRA is after age 59 and a half, assuming it's been at least 5 years since you first opened a Roth IRA, and also at least 5 years have passed since any traditional IRA funds were converted to Roth funds, withdrawals from that Roth IRA are totally free of all taxes. So Roth IRAs are usually funded via a rollover from an existing Roth IRA or a rollover from a Roth 401k or a Roth subaccount in some other sort of workplace-based retirement plan. At this point, that's our very basic overview of IRAs and why you might want Bitcoin in your IRA. Connor's going to talk a little bit about how you can secure your Unchained IRA funds with multisig while still having control over a quorum of keys.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that overview, Jeff. And once again, thanks everyone for being here. Before we jump into the Unchained IRA specifically, I do want to just take a moment to discuss Unchained Capital and our platform more broadly, because a lot of people don't realize that the IRA is one small part of what we do. Our core product is really custody. And more specifically, our mission at Unchained Capital is to empower individuals to hold their own private keys. So what does that mean exactly, holding your own private keys? As many of you are aware, a core aspect of where Bitcoin really gets its value from is the fact that you do not have to rely on a third party to secure your wealth. It's kind of akin to individuals that are holding physical gold or large amounts of cash or jewelry in their home. The intention of those individuals is that those instruments are bearer assets. They provide final settlement. And in order for someone to come and take your wealth, they would literally need to come to your house and take it physically. The alternative there is to obviously hold your funds at a third party like a bank. But as we are continuously seeing around the world, increasingly, at the click of a button, or with the decision of a small number of individuals, you can be completely blocked from accessing your wealth. Bitcoin, among the many other benefits that it provides, one of the most important is the fact that it is a digital bearer asset. It offers that same benefit as physical gold in terms of final settlement, but certainly improves on it because it's much less expensive to secure Bitcoin in a really secure way. And also, I can, of course, send it across the world instantaneously, essentially at no cost. And so without getting too deep into the technical weeds here, I did just want to walk through the backbone behind Bitcoin, which is public-private key cryptography. There's a little diagram on the screen here to show you the relationship between a private key and a public key. Ultimately, the private key is used to generate the public key, and the public key is used to generate deposit addresses. Now, all of this is one-way cryptography. You can't work backwards from the deposit address or the public key to get the private key. And what this relationship allows for is the ability to provide a deposit address to the world without revealing one's identity. And as whoever is securing that private key that is associated with the public key, they are the ones that ultimately control the wealth. This is true for every address that is created on the Bitcoin network. And that is true for Bitcoin that is held on exchanges like Coinbase and Kraken or any other one. Ultimately, the only difference is that they are the ones controlling the private key and not you. And all of this going back to the idea of being a sovereign individual, having the ability to control your own wealth. You can do that with a hardware device like this Trezor that I'm holding up. And what these devices do is they allow you to store that digital private key offline, off the internet. And ultimately, you are able to be the only individual in the world that can access that Bitcoin. Now, the Bitcoin doesn't live on this device. The Bitcoin lives on the blockchain. What lives on this device is that digital private key. And that allows me to prove to the network that this Bitcoin is mine, and therefore I can send it wherever I want. The downside, though, with just creating addresses with one private key using one of these devices is that it is a single point of failure. If your key is ever lost or destroyed or compromised, well, your Bitcoin is potentially gone forever because you cannot recreate these private keys. But what's really cool about the Bitcoin network is that you can create an address that has multiple private keys associated with it. And ultimately, that's where Unchained Capital comes in. Unchained Capital helps our clients create multi-signature addresses where there are 3 private keys associated with a given address. And in order to access the Bitcoin, you need to be able to provide any 2 of those 3 private keys. There's a visual on the screen here. You can also think about it as a digital safety deposit box where there are 3 keyholes, 3 keys, and you need any 2 of them in order to open that digital safety deposit box. Unchained Capital holds 1 key, and you, the individual, holds 2 keys in the form of 2 hardware devices. Our platform works with Trezors, ledgers, and cold cards. The end result of this structure is what we call collaborative custody. We only have 1 key. We literally do not have the ability to access your Bitcoin. And you, on the other hand, have 2 private keys. You have unilateral access to your Bitcoin, and you can access your Bitcoin whether or not we are even in existence. Now, obviously, we hope that never will be the case, but the point being, we are not a single point of failure either. Now, the broader value of our platform is that with 1 login and 2 hardware devices, you can manage all of your Bitcoin wealth in a single place. And you can build a 2 of 3 vault for your personal Bitcoin and for a business or an LLC. And you could also build it for an IRA account, which is obviously the purpose of the discussion today. So I'm going to transition here and we'll talk briefly about the Unchained IRA. But one point I did just want to make. If this all sounds overwhelming to you, not to worry. Our concierge onboarding service is something you can sign up for where we will walk you through every step of the process, from setting up these devices to building a vault on our platform. And you can even order the hardware devices through us if need be. Now, obviously, we're here today to discuss the Unchained IRA and Bitcoin IRAs more broadly. And ultimately, that's the benefit of having Jeff Vandrew join our team is that we were able to roll out the Unchained IRA. What the Unchained IRA allows for is a solution. It's one of a kind where we can help you set up a IRA account that's really no different than an IRA you would see at a Fidelity or a Schwab or any of these legacy financial institutions. But importantly, you are holding real Bitcoin in that IRA, and you get to control your keys in this same 2 of 3 structure that we just walked through. So we can just jump right into Q&A here because I know that's really the focus of the discussion today. If you are interested in the Unchained IRA, you can initiate your onboarding by filling out an order form directly on our website. I believe there will be a link that pops up here shortly. You can also visit the Unchained IRA website for more information. Now with that, the main purpose of this discussion is just getting right into the live Q&A. I see we have lots of questions in the chat, and so we can just get right into it. So looking here at the chat, I am looking at some of these questions and just trying to pick out. So one of the questions here is, what are my options if my Trezor becomes physically damaged? It's a really good question, and it's an important one to identify because these devices, at the end of the day, it's technology. If this were to fall into a cup of water or be stepped on, it would be destroyed. All of these hardware manufacturers are aware of that, and they came out with this clever solution to allow you to restore your digital private key by turning that really long string of numbers, this digital private key, into a series of 12 or 24 words. That is called a seed phrase. Some people refer to it as a recovery phrase or a backup phrase. You write that down when you're setting up these devices initially. We'll walk you through that as part of the concierge onboarding session. And ultimately, if that were to ever happen and this device were to break, all you would need to do is buy a new hardware device. It doesn't even need to be the same manufacturer. Put in your 12 or 24 words, and now I have restored my digital private key onto a new hardware device. So when you're thinking about setting up a 2 of 3 address at Unchained Capital, even though there are 2 keys that you need to secure, there are actually 4 objects of information that you are going to want to secure separately. The 2 hardware devices and their unique seed phrases. If you are able to secure the 2 hardware devices and 2 seed phrases in 4 different places, that ultimately allows for a setup where you can lose 3 of those 4 objects and still recover your Bitcoin. Because importantly, the relationship and the importance of Unchained Capital is not only that we're helping you build these addresses and of course providing you financial services as well, but we are sharing that responsibility of holding the keys with you. If one of your keys were to ever be lost, we can always use our key as a backup to help you recover the Bitcoin. And so going back to that scenario, in that doomsday scenario where I have my 4 objects of information, even if I've lost 3 of them and all I have left is 1 seed phrase, all I need to do is buy a new hardware device, put in my seed phrase, and now I have restored my key and I have 1 key that can sign. I use Unchained Capital as that second key, and now we've recovered the Bitcoin. You can just imagine the benefits and potential that you have from an inheritance planning standpoint as well in that setup. So we will get back to the questions here. I'll throw this one out there to Jeff. It's a hypothetical situation where U.S. follows Canada's lead and freezes an individual's account for whatever reason. Would the Unchained IRA account be frozen since you have access to the private keys? I guess I'll start, and then Jeff, maybe you can add your legal opinion, because we really just answered this question in the last discussion. When you're holding the private keys, whether it is a government or a company that came to Unchained Capital and said, freeze Joe's IRA account or broader Bitcoin, we wouldn't be able to. It's a physical impossibility because we only have 1 key. That is the main feature of our platform. And it is inherent, in our opinion, that you should be able to hold your own private keys. And that's true for both an IRA account, a personal account, or anything else. Jeff, anything else to add there?
Yeah, just a few clarifications regarding how this applies for IRAs. So unlike a regular Unchained account, one difference between an IRA and a non-IRA account is under federal law, IRAs have to have like a legal custodian. So we do use Solera National Bank for that purpose because they're a legally qualified IRA custodian. The reason you have control over your private keys is because Solera delegates that private key control, 2 keys to you and 1 key to Unchained. So neither Solera has access to no private keys. Unchained has access to 1, which is not a quorum, meaning we cannot move the coins without your consent, and you have access to 2. However, both Unchained and Solera have access to the public keys and the wallet configuration file. And in the context of an IRA, that's important because the IRA custodian is required to monitor that account for tax purposes. For instance, if you were to move coins out of your IRA vault, we need to know about it because that has to get reported to the IRS as a taxable withdrawal, unless you were doing it as part of some sort of prearranged rollover ahead of time. So I like to be very upfront. So I tell all this information to say, I mean, the vaults, although we would not have the ability to freeze your funds, absolutely not. That's a huge selling point here. It would be a physical impossibility. We do have to, comply with court orders. So if they asked for like transactional information or they wouldn't even need transactional information. They would just probably ask for public keys and wallet configuration, right? And they could get that. They could view anything they needed on the blockchain. That, of course, would have to be turned over. That's the nature of an IRA, and there's no way around that. But the most important point that Connor gives there is, we don't have any ability to freeze your funds. You would be able to withdraw them, using your 2 private keys. That withdrawal would be, of course, reported to the IRS, but otherwise you'd be good to go and your funds would not be frozen or seized.
Excellent. Thanks for that clarification, Jeff. I have a question from Daniel here, and another question about transferring equities. Ultimately, the question more broadly is, walking through the process, the rollover process of setting up an Unchained IRA and moving funds over from another IRA or a 401k from a former employer, which is ultimately how most people are funding their Unchained IRAs. So the way that the process works from a broader level, once you fill out the IRA order form and we run your payment, we will work to establish a new IRA account for you at Solera National Bank, who is our IRA custodial partner, and setting up a vault on behalf of that IRA account. Once those 2 steps have been completed, you will have the ability at any point after that to fund that IRA, whether it's from making an annual contribution or rolling it over from another retirement plan. So the way that process works is slightly different depending on where those funds are coming from. For example, coming from an IRA versus a 401k from a former employer. But ultimately, those funds are going to be rolled over as tax-advantaged US dollars. So you can do either the full amount or a partial amount. And the process would be to liquidate the assets at your current custodian, move it back into tax-advantaged US dollars, and then have those tax-advantaged US dollars sent over to Solera National Bank. Once those funds settle, the following business day, Unchained Capital will place a Bitcoin conversion through our trading desk on your behalf. Another question here is from Barrett regarding required minimum distributions. The question is, if I buy Bitcoin in an IRA, then I'll be subjected to required minimum distributions. What do you say to clients who don't want to be forced to sell Bitcoin at any point in life? Jeff, maybe I'll let you take that one.
Yeah, so 2 things. First of all, it's important to understand required minimum distributions are only required for traditional IRAs. So one way to not have to do RMDs at all is to do a Roth conversion. And that, there are tax consequences to a Roth conversion, but, you may make out in the long term taking that upfront tax hit because all future appreciation will be tax-free forever. And then you never have to worry about RMDs at all. So, of course, consult with your tax advisor on that one to work out the math there. But even if you're in a traditional IRA and you are required to take RMDs, it's important to note you do not have to sell your Bitcoin to take your RMDs. Our platform supports you taking your RMDs in kind in Bitcoin. So if your calculated required minimum distribution for a given year is $5,000, you can work with our client services team, and they will help you take a direct withdrawal out of your vault of $5,000 worth of Bitcoin. That'll be reported to the IRS just like any other RMD, but there's no sale in between. It'll just be moving Bitcoin out of your Unchained IRA vault and into your Unchained personal vault or any other, Bitcoin address you may desire.
Excellent. There's a good question from Dennis regarding the annual cost of doing business with Unchained Capital, and maybe that's a good opportunity to talk about the pricing structure for the Unchained IRA more broadly. So for the Unchained IRA, there is a $995 setup fee for the actual setup of the IRA account. That is a one-time upfront cost, and those would come out of personal funds. There is also a $250 annual maintenance fee for the IRA, but that doesn't start until year 2. 12 months after you've established the IRA account. Additionally, as I had mentioned earlier, we have a concierge onboarding service, which is a virtual consultation call with one of our Bitcoin experts where we will walk you through getting set up on our platform. You can add that concierge onboarding service to that $995 order for $250. And then additionally, if you'd like to order devices through us, we send out the Trezor Model T, and you can order those devices through us for $200 per device. So once again, $995 setup fee and $250 annual maintenance fee, which starts in year 2. That is per IRA order. And then to your IRA order, you can also add on the concierge onboarding service for $250. And then if you go through the concierge onboarding service, you can also order devices through us for $200 per device. Another really good question here from Brian, and it may be a very quick one to answer, but once my wife and I have a 2 of 3 vault set up, do I need to give her my Unchained credentials, or would she have her own account? So I'll try and answer this question in a couple of different ways because there's a few things to unpack here. Importantly, there are no joint accounts at Unchained Capital. And of course, from a legal perspective, Jeff, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't believe there are such things as joint IRA accounts either. But ultimately,
yeah, they're not permitted under the Internal Revenue Code. All IRAs have to be individual, only one equitable owner of the account.
Perfect. Thank you for clarifying that. As I had mentioned earlier, you can use the same 2 hardware devices for every vault that you build on our platform. And that spans across profiles as well. So you can set up an Unchained IRA on behalf of yourself and on behalf of your spouse. You would just need 2 separate Unchained Capital profiles, although you can still use the same 2 hardware devices. There's a really good question here, Jeff, that we've gotten every once in a while. So I will let you answer this one because I think you handle it well. As a Swedish citizen that has worked in the US and has a 401k, am I allowed to open an Unchained IRA?
Yeah, the answer to the question is yes. So if you worked in the US previously and you have a 401k from that time, you obviously have a US taxpayer identification number. And that's basically what you would need to be able to open one. Our financial services partner, Solera, does make us collect some additional information when you are a non-U.S. person like this. Namely, we're going to need a copy of your Swedish passport. Also, they are going to require both your address in Sweden, and they will also require you to provide a mailing address within the United States that is not a P.O. box. That could be anything. That could be a friend, a family member. It could be a mailing service that is common for expatriates to use. That's all fine. But they do require a U.S. mailing address that is not a P.O. box, in addition to your address in Sweden.
Excellent. Thank you, Jeff. I got another good question that I will let you handle with your legal expertise. Joe Z is throwing a lot of questions in there. Certainly keep them coming. This one is, how would Unchained respond if the U.S. government requests customer information on Bitcoin accounts under threat of legal charges?
Well, so we have to comply with all court orders, right? I mean, there's no way around that. The way this question is phrased seems to me, unless I'm misinterpreting it, that the government wasn't even asking for information on one Bitcoin account. It seems like what's called a John Doe subpoena, and Coinbase famously got one of those, some years ago. A John Doe subpoena means like we want information on every John Doe that was using your platform, essentially. So if we got a John Doe subpoena, I can't guarantee this, but my assumption is that we would pursue the appropriate legal actions in court to not have to comply with that subpoena. You don't have to. There are avenues where those sorts of things can be contested legally. However, if we exhausted our ability to do so and we're still ordered by the court to provide that information, we of course would, right? We can't break the law. At the end of the day, we can never break the law. So yeah, I mean, if we got a broad John Doe subpoena like that, that would be the best answer I would be able to give.
Thank you, Jeff. We'll just keep rolling. There's a lot of great questions in the chat. Once again, as a reminder, in the bottom right, you can submit questions into that tab. You can also vote for questions that you want answered. This next question comes from Michael. When rolling an employer 401k into an Unchained IRA, if I already have an Unchained Roth IRA, can I do a Roth conversion for the whole amount? Jeff, do you mind taking that one?
Yeah, no problem. The answer is yes. And typically for 401ks, the plan administrator will actually do the conversion for you. All you have to do is when you're requesting the check. So when you're doing an IRA to IRA transfer, the funds typically come over as a wire. The two custodians wire to one another. When you're doing a 401k to IRA transfer, on the other hand, most 401k plan administrators will require sending a check. So when that request is made, if you request that it be that check be made out to a Roth IRA, they'll do the conversion for you right there and send the Roth funds directly to Solera, who's our IRA financial services partner. And then those funds will automatically end up as Bitcoin within your Unchained IRA vault.
Great. Another question here from another Michael. And in short, the question is, do I have the ability to liquidate Bitcoin within the Unchained IRA into cash at any point? Now, the last part here is whether in an IRA or not. The second part of that question is really more in reference to our trading desk, which is available in a certain number of states. It's probably outside of the scope of the discussion today, but we can speak to the trading functionality within Unchained Capital, within the Unchained IRA. Ultimately, this product really is designed for buy and hold investors and not for traders. There is not the ability to move in and out of Bitcoin to dollars and then back into Bitcoin. Although certainly when you are looking to take a distribution, or if you ever wanted to roll your funds back into another, transfer your funds to another IRA and do a US dollar transfer, we would have the ability to convert your Bitcoin back into dollars. But ultimately, to answer that question, this really is a buy and hold product, and trading functionality is not included within the Unchained IRA. Jeff, anything else to add there?
Yeah, just a little context. I mean, basically the way to think about it is as soon as money comes into your Unchained IRA, either via an annual contribution or a rollover, we at Unchained automatically, when we receive it, we convert it to Bitcoin. And the only way we convert it back to dollars is if it's leaving the Unchained IRA. So meaning if you execute a rollover back into the legacy financial system, we'll convert that Bitcoin back to dollars on its way out the door for you. Or if you're making a IRA withdrawal, like say in retirement or something like that, you can always do that in Bitcoin if you want, but on those withdrawals, you also have the option to convert back to dollars, on the IRA withdrawal itself. I think that's the best way to think about it. And I'm going to take this opportunity to dispose of one other question that was very, very similar and related to this that I saw in the question box. You do not have to do any sort of interaction with any third-party exchanges. Unchained converts the Bitcoin for you on the way in and converts it back to dollars on the way out if necessary. And there's no additional fee for that other than the 0.5% that trading fee that Connor mentioned when he went over fees in general.
Excellent. I got another inheritance question for you here not another inheritance question, but more of a legal question for you from Mary Lou. As far as inheritance, what is the procedure for my heir to access my Unchained Capital account? And for this discussion, let's focus more on the Unchained IRA. And I'll also, I guess, make a plug for our next Retirement Inheritance Series webinar, where the one and only Jeff Vandrew is going to be going through inheritance planning on a Bitcoin standard. But for this discussion, maybe we can just briefly talk through the beneficiary aspect of the Unchained IRA.
Yeah, so I mean, this is one where we're not particularly different from a legacy financial system IRA, and that's by necessity, right? The IRA. So the federal IRA statute actually defines what happens to your IRA when you die, and it is not similar to your other assets. So IRAs by law all have a beneficiary designation right on the IRA account itself. So one of the things that you do during the setup process is you will designate your death beneficiaries. You can change those at any time by, filling out some paperwork. You're not locked into those forever. So when you die, your IRA does not pass under your will. It passes to the death beneficiaries designated on your IRA account itself. That's just how IRAs work. Now, ultimately, that death beneficiary is going to have to find at least one of your hardware devices or seed phrases, right? Because the beneficiary designation determines who has the legal entitlement to it. But if he actually wants to access those coins, he's going to have to access at least one of those private pieces of information. If he can only get one, then he can come to Unchained and, prove his identity. And then we would provide the second signature so that he can access the coins. If he's able to access both on his own, then he doesn't need Unchained at all. Right. He's able to move the coins without our involvement.
Excellent. We'll keep rolling here. I'm just doing a time check. Looks like, I think we'll have time for, maybe 8 more minutes. We'll stop at 12:45 Eastern time and just keep rolling, but certainly keep the questions coming in that chat. The next question from the audience, let me pull some up here. This one from Scott's a good one. Aside from Unchained fees, are we purchasing, acquiring Bitcoin through you as an exchange and additional fees applied? I'll take a stab at that one. If I'm interpreting that question correctly, that's really more in reference to our trading desk. So we have, Unchained Capital has our own trading desk that we operate both within the IRA and without the IRA, outside of the IRA. And so that's ultimately how we are completing these Bitcoin conversions on your behalf. That is how we are able to offer a really competitive trading fee at 0.5%. I believe the next closest competitor in the space right now is 1% in terms of trading fees. So we are using our own trading desk to help convert your tax advantage dollars into Bitcoin. And then if you were to decide to take a US dollar distribution as opposed to a Bitcoin distribution, we would use our trading desk there as well. And there would be a 0.5% trading fee applied if you, to convert the Bitcoin back into dollars, if you did decide to take a USD distribution. Really appreciate all the questions. And this is another one since we've, Jeff did live a previous life before Unchained Capital, and really is as I say, the godfather of the Bitcoin IRA. Has been doing this for a very long time. Some clients were asking about the individuals who set up a KeyKeeper IRA with you previously and how that process would work.
Yeah, at the current time, and this won't last forever, but we don't have a specific end date for it yet. Anyone with a Solera National Bank IRA that I had set up for them when I was in private practice would be able to come over to the Unchained IRA product and have the setup fee waived. And the reason we're doing that is because you guys just paid your setup fee, very recently before I came over to Unchained. So, Connor, you can provide some context on what they should do, right, in terms of if they want to start that migration process?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say the easiest way to go about it is just reach out to me, Connor@unchained.com, and happy to discuss next steps with you. So here's a really good question. It's not necessarily related to the Unchained IRA, but it comes from David, and it's really more in reference to private key security and storage. And I wanted to answer this question because our team are nerds when it comes to this stuff, and we are constantly coming out with additional content in regards to best practices on how to secure your private keys. The short answer is, although there are best practices, there isn't a one-size-fits-all solution. Individuals have different situations in terms of their, whether they are renting or buying, whether they have multiple properties. Some of our clients think that a safety deposit box is a great place to store one of their private keys. Other Bitcoiner clients want nothing to do with the traditional financial system, and I can certainly understand. So a couple of quick thoughts here. We do have a operational security guide, which we can have shared in the chat here. We also have a lot of really, really good resources on our YouTube channel outside of the Unchained IRA content that we've been putting out that focuses on key security, key storage, and everything in between. So I would definitely encourage you to take a look at the other content that we've put out. And another reason to sign up for the concierge onboarding service, that is absolutely a conversation we're happy to have with you in terms of talking through your specific situation and how best to secure your hardware devices, the seed phrase, and your wallet configuration file in a secure manner. One of the other questions here was, and I'm trying to look for it here in the bevy of different questions in the chat. From Alex, do you offer the IRA vault without the concierge services? Absolutely. A lot of our clients, as you can imagine, want the concierge onboarding service because they want that education. They want the comfort and the ability to sleep at night knowing they're setting everything up the right way. But certainly we have lots of clients that are very technically savvy. Maybe they already own their hardware devices and they are familiar with multi-signature custody. The concierge onboarding service, the device order, both of those are completely optional. You could sign up for the concierge onboarding service and come equipped with your own hardware devices, whether they're already set up or they're brand new. Our platform, once again, works with Trezors, ledgers, and cold cards. Or you could just sign up for the IRA service. That's that flat $995 fee. There was another question in the chat that's similar, that was someone who is already an Unchained client, which we certainly appreciate your partnership. And they were asking about adding on an IRA vault to their current setup. They've already gone through concierge onboarding once. Do they need to go through it again? And the short answer there is no. The education that you get in that concierge onboarding service applies to our entire platform, whether you're building vaults for the IRA or for your personal vault or for an entity like an LLC or a business or a trust. Really appreciate all the questions coming in. They are very consistent, so we appreciate the attention here today. Looking through the chat to see which ones we haven't answered yet, and just picking a couple more out. So with that being said, I just got a time check, and looking here, I think we're coming right up on the time. So with that being said, we do really appreciate the time today. These are recurring discussions, so this will be happening on a monthly basis. Certainly feel free to join us next time to ask additional questions. But additionally, if you are interested in speaking with someone one-on-one about our IRA product or our broader platform, feel free to click that link that has popped up on your screen to schedule time directly on the calendar of one of our team members. Additionally, if you have any questions, our website is a great resource, and you have the ability to schedule time with our team through the Unchained IRA website and also just on the front page of the Unchained IRA website. So with that, I think we'll wrap it up here. Jeff, once again, thank you so much for your time. You are always a wealth of knowledge here. Thank you all for joining us and for the great questions and participation. We appreciate everyone joining today. And with that, we'll wrap up. Thanks.
Thanks, everybody.